Number 1. King Friedrich Wilhelm was obsessed with giants. Friedrich Wilhelm I was known as a passionate militarist who massively expanded the Prussian army during his reign. However, the king was particularly eager to build a personal regiment made up of unusually tall soldiers. These soldiers were widely known and referred to as the Potsdam Giants. No special skills were required to be admitted into this elite unit. There was only one criterion. You had to be at least 6 feet 1 inch or 188 centimeters tall. A moment of silence here for all my short kings. But don't feel too sorry for them, because, of course, there were some pretty sick twists when it came to this unit. First, Friedrich often roamed the empire, always on the lookout for tall children. Whenever he discovered a tall child, he did the only thing that seemed logical. He kidnapped the child from their family and left behind some money as compensation. Second, Wilhelm tried to make these soldiers even taller by placing them on the rack, which often resulted in the soldier being crippled or killed. While they were provided with food and money, they were always just one decision away from being literally torn apart by a medieval torture device. Number 2. Emperor Nero greatly enjoyed killing Christians. It wouldn't be a list about crazy rulers without at least one Roman emperor. Nero was a tyrannical and selfish Roman emperor who ascended to the throne at the age of 16. In his case, that meant he murdered about half of his family. Now imagine what happens when this madman, who wasn't even afraid to kill his own family, develops a hatred for a particular religion. After Nero was blamed for the Great Fire of Rome, he quickly shifted the blame to the Christians and ordered them to be persecuted. He also found great joy in killing Christians and was sadistically creative in how he executed them. Nero had Christians crucified, fed to wild dogs, and burned alive. The latter particularly pleased him, as he was known to use Christians as so-called human torches at his parties. Number 3. Caligula had a special relationship with his horse. Caligula was Roman emperor from 37 to 41 AD, and the man was not without controversy. For example, his incestuous relationship with his sister. But incest wasn't his obsession, as his love for his sisters paled in comparison to the love he had for his horse, Incitalis. Caligula gave the horse a marble stable and its own house, and even invited Incitatus to dine at the palace. These meals, of course, consisted of oats mixed with golden flakes. I mean, anything else would hardly be appropriate for such a noble horse, right? There's also a legend that Caligula appointed his horse as consul, but historians doubt this story, as it was likely just a joke about Caligula's love for his horse. However, when we think of the golden flakes, we all have to admit that the story does make a certain amount of sense. Number 4. Fyodor of Russia loved ringing church bells. Fyodor I may have been the son of Ivan the Terrible, but I can assure you he had nothing in common with his psychopathic father. While Ivan was obsessed with killing, his son preferred peaceful activities like praying. He was very religious and often visited different churches and monasteries in the region. His favorite hobby was ringing church bells to call the faithful, which also earned him the very literal nickname Fyodor the Bellringer. Number 5. Joanna of Castile loved spending time with her dead husband. Joanna married Philip the Handsome of Austria when she was a teenager. However, their relationship turned out to be quite toxic. Her husband became increasingly unfaithful, which plunged Joanna into despair and revealed her fragile mental health. Ironically and disgustingly, their relationship actually became more affectionate after Philip's death. It is reported that she caressed and kissed Philip's corpse and only parted from him once he was embalmed and laid to rest in a monastery near Burgos. But Joanna couldn't restrain her necrophilic urges for long. Shortly afterward, she had the coffin reopened to look at the corpse and, for some reason, kiss its feet. She even became jealous and aggressive if Willem dared to approach the coffin. Joanna was only separated from her beloved corpse when she was imprisoned for life. Number 6. Christian VII of Denmark couldn't keep his hands off himself. We move from a woman who couldn't keep her hands off her dead husband to a young man who couldn't keep his hands off himself. Christian displayed many antisocial behaviors, but his most notorious was his obsession with masturbation. You want to know how often the young king masturbated? Well, let me put it this way. If the Christian myth were true that masturbation causes hairy palms, King Christian could have been cast as Chewbacca. According to reports by the royal physician, he masturbated so much that it interfered with his duties as a ruler, and by the way, it also interfered with his marriage. But don't worry, because reportedly, none other than that very royal physician took care of his wife while Christian was occupied. Number 7. Vlad III loved impaling people. Vlad was ruler of Wallachia in the 15th century and became known as Vlad the Impaler. Vlad loved impaling his enemies and fixing their bodies to the ground. He also decapitated, flayed, and disemboweled his victims. No wonder Dracula was named after him. And yes, that's another widely held misconception. The famous Count Dracula was named after Vlad the Impaler, but the character was not based on the brutal ruler. Number 8. Amalie of Bavaria suffered from glass delusion. Princess Amalie was an eccentric woman with a love for literature. That was her normal side, but believe me, she had a very strange side too. The princess was convinced she had swallowed a glass piano. Yes, I'm not joking, this was a phenomenon many people suffered from. In Amalie's case, she moved about with great caution, especially when passing through doorways, so as not to break the piano supposedly hidden in her stomach. And finally, number 9, Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with immortality. Qin Shi Huang founded the Qin dynasty and is considered the first emperor of China. And like many powerful men in history, he didn't want to give up his power. So he invested a great deal of time, effort, and money into finding the key to eternal life. There are accounts of 2 particular methods. First, he believed in an ancient legend that said there were 3 spirit mountains in the middle of the sea, inhabited by immortals. He even sent out expeditions to find magical, immortality-granting plants. But, believe it or not, his soldiers never encountered the spirits of the mountains. Second, the emperor often drank elixirs and potions that were supposed to prolong his life. These potions, made by alchemists, often contained jade and toxic mercury. The latter was most likely the cause of his relatively early death. Thanks for watching. See the video on your screen? Well, YouTube thinks this one might interest you as well, so go ahead and check it out if you like.